I don't think this one is available in the UK, so I've imported this copy from the USA. This is Blue Underground's 4K release of the 1980 Don Taylor time-travelling spectacular, The Final Countdown, which was actually shot aboard the USS Nimitz, one of America's nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. It was actually the recent issue of Cinema Retro that put me onto this release for The Final Countdown. I saw that full-page advertisement and I thought, yes, I've got the DVD, haven't watched it for years, but I thought I want to see that as it was at the cinema, and what better than with a 4K release. So I put my order in, and then it turned out my friend John at Mondo Chelovek Movies, who is, I've mentioned many times, great reviewer, he also put a pre-order in, so hopefully he's going to do a review of the same title, because I'll be very interested to see what he makes of this release too. The basic premise of the film is that the USS Nimitz suddenly approaches a storm like no one has ever seen, and it turns out this is some sort of time portal, and when they come out the other side of this storm, they find that they've gone back in time, and as they were cruising just off the coast of Pearl Harbor, wouldn't you guess that they've arrived back in December 1941, the day before the infamous Japanese attack. Now, this film was actually shot on board the Nimitz, as I say, and they got full use of the F-14 Tomcats and all the other aircraft. So this is quite historic, because this means that they got out to actually film the genuine F-14 Tomcats with their daredevil pilots actually flying through the sky with what I believe are genuine Zeros from 1941, and to get all those in the same scenes while flying really is quite spectacular. Some of the flying looked really dangerous to me, and indeed the extras do give some of the details of how that flying was achieved. If I remember correctly, they had a helicopter to act as the camera aircraft to start with, but it wasn't fast enough in order to be able to keep up with both sets of planes. But the booklet contained within the 4K, which to start with I didn't think was telling us much about the making of the film, it's really a diary of the pilots who took the Zero aircraft across America to Key West in Florida to take part in the filming. They didn't really know what they were getting into, and they do detail some of the action sequences in the planes, and indeed it really was dangerous, and it is amazing that no one was seriously injured or killed during the making of this film. So even if you're not into time-travelling adventures like this, I'd say if you're into action, it would be worth taking a look at this just to see some of those flying sequences. Really spectacular. This is another film that had to be shot in the scope frame for obvious reasons, so the 2.4:1 approximately aspect ratio is there. In terms of the sound has been reworked into Dolby Atmos, which I'm sure many people will be very happy about. They have also got the DTS-HD 5.1 on here as an option. I played both, and even though we're on 5.1 THX, I thought the Dolby Atmos sounded better. It's louder, and that can often fool you into thinking something's better. But anyway, I thought it had more bass to it, a deeper bass. I may be wrong, but give it an experiment if you're not on Atmos and see what you think. Similarly to the review of The Matrix I did previously to this, the image quality can best be described as variable. Now, it's exceptional in places, so by variable, here's what I mean. In the tight interior shots, some of them at least, it looks to me like the anamorphic scope lens was slightly askew, because the image at the top and the bottom can be very blurry at times and in focus across the middle. That's normally an indication that the scope lens is slightly tilted, and so that was how it was shot, that's how it looked in cinemas, that's what we're left with. Also, of course, 1980, so opticals were the way to go to insert titles and to merge multiple elements into special effects. So the opening of the film with the opening titles, you may think, this is very grainy, it's not particularly good. Well, just relax, because when you get to the first exterior shot after those titles, you will see a fairly exceptional image as Martin Sheen makes his way into the USS Nimitz. As I mentioned earlier, I have the film on DVD, had it for years. I think it's an early DVD, so it's not even a 16:9 anamorphic if I remember. It's just a letterboxed widescreen. the picture quality on this is terrible. But it does mean that those slightly blurry shots, because this is so much lower quality, they don't notice. And similarly, when this film was on at cinemas in 1980, we were predominantly seeing films on huge screens compared to what we see now. The multiplexes weren't really the commonplace that they are today, and that meant we all saw them in larger auditoriums with bigger screens. So that also would have had the added advantage of blowing the film up large enough that it wasn't quite as sharp as it otherwise would be on our tiny home screens or on small screens in multiplexes. So that would have disguised those occasional blurry shots, and that's possibly why the filmmakers decided to just press on, not go back and reshoot where the anamorphic lens might have been slightly out of alignment. So this is another good 4K release. I got mine from America, as I say. It was about £32 all in. I can't leave you the link to it in the description below because I went to get it before coming in here to review this, and it appears that it's sold out. So I'm sure it's still available from other dealers on the web, but it might be worth getting in quick. Anyway, the Blu-ray is identical to the 4K, all the extras on there are on both discs. The 4K is noticeably superior, looked a bit sharper than the Blu-ray, but also colour and contrast, the usual things are better. I ran the 4K not in bright environment on the HDR, the next setting down on light environment. So worth playing about with any 4K disc before you sit down to enjoy it, because some of these 4Ks, the HDR, it's just too blown out, the contrast is too high. Varies on every system, of course. And also John Scott's soundtrack on a CD. I've played this a couple of times. I think I'm going to be playing it a few times more. It is a very good soundtrack and it complements the images on screen perfectly. So this is a very good package. It's got reversible artwork on the inlay, so it's got the same on the other side as the slipcover, but does give you the opportunity of having two alternative artworks visible when you take your case out of your slipcover. Martin Sheen was still concluding Apocalypse Now while he was shooting this film, and it's quite appropriate really because I'm still concluding my 4K review of Apocalypse Now. But one of the chaps I'm coordinating with, Leon at Leon Talks Film, he's had a bit of trouble, and so John at Mondo Celovec and myself, we want to give him some time so we can all coordinate. But it's quite exciting because I think we're all of the same opinion of Apocalypse Now. It really is an exceptional 4K release. So to summarise the final countdown on 4K, I think it's worth purchasing. There are a few flaws with the disc, but those flaws rest with the original film. So if you fancy seeing another time-travelling action adventure, or you just want to see those spectacular flying sequences, this is going to be the best way I think that we'll ever see it. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to create even more content like this again in the future. Until the next video, bye bye for now.